Annabelle Comes Home is the latest entry in the venerable and plentiful Conjuring universe franchise that, centers on the Warrens. They're paranormal investigators, demonologists. She's the psychic, and I guess he's like the bodyguard or whatever, because he doesn't have any powers or whatever. But, they work together to investigate and exorcise evil. And then they take these artifacts and they put them, in their basement with all these, they lock it up. And their most famous one, I think the most famous at this point, is Annabelle, the doll, who's so great, she has to have her own franchise, which this movie is an entry in. The plot is, the Warrens, they have a daughter. That daughter needs a babysitter. So, one night when the Warrens have to go somewhere to investigate a case overnight somewhere else, they gotta leave her with, her babysitter, and her babysitter's friend comes over, and there's other teenagers and things like that involved in the storyline. Basically to watch this girl, and because, teenagers in horror movies, they wind up unlocking Annabelle from her case, where she's locked up safely. And when Annabelle is locked out, when Annabelle's taken out of the case, all the evil comes out with her, and all the evil of other artifacts in that room, they get activated too. And so these teenagers have to survive the night and figure out a way to end the evil before they are taken over or just killed while the Warrens are away. And that is the plot of Annabelle Comes Home. Before I will continue, it reminded me of, if you're someone who watches a lot of cartoons, I don't watch cartoons too much these days. When I was a little kid, they were very formulaic, and you would see this same kind of plot line in comic books today, where there are some main characters who are usually the adults, and then they have these other characters who are the little kids or teenagers. And sometimes there would be like some kind of event where the adults or the main characters had to leave, and so for an episode or two, they leave the kids or the teenagers or the side characters to, have to handle something while the adults are out. And, those kids, we're side characters, even though they're side characters or kids, they're so courageous and punchy and plucky, they figure out a way to handle it themselves while the main characters are off doing whatever they're doing, right? I've seen this plot in comic books, cartoons, TV shows. It's like when Robin has to figure out something when Batman's away. It's like, even though I'm just, a teenager or whatever, I'm Robin and I can do it. And then Batman comes back home and is like, wow, Robin, you beat the bad guy up all by yourself. I'm impressed. It's like the X-Men and the New Mutants, the Justice League and the Teen Titans. You've seen this dynamic play out. And that's what Annabelle Comes Home reminded me of, when, it's like the Warrens, the seasoned, courageous, grown-ups are away. It's up to the kids. In this case, the kids being their daughter and her babysitter and her babysitter's friends. But anyways, so what did I think of the movie? I thought that it was a decent movie. But at this point, this is like the umpteenth Conjuring universe entry. It does seem like the Conjuring formula. I'm wondering how much longer they can sustain it this way. Because it's basically like a lot of long, drawn-out jump scares. And some of them are good. Like, it's not bad. And it's well put together. Very, good cinematography, well shot and stuff, as they all are. But it's kind of like it's just a bunch of jump scares. And at the end, they face off, they have this final confrontation with the demon or whatever, or the creature, and then the movie's over. And almost every movie in this entry is like that. So it does become a bit repetitive. And the Conjuring universe, the movies aren't really that gory or bloody. They're not slasher movies. So in a lot of cases, that people are going to get scared, but a lot of times nothing's really going to happen to them. It's not necessarily a guarantee that anybody's going to get killed, so there's not really a sense of urgency or real dread. There are people who do die in these movies, but not as frequently as you may think. Now, I'm not someone who has bloodlust and is I need a high body count, but I'm saying if watching these movies that it's just going to be a bunch of scares, and some of them are scary, but most likely people aren't going to get hurt. It's what is anybody afraid of then? I'm just going to have I'm going to yell and scream a lot. The characters in the movie, I'm going to have a bad day, but maybe they won't get killed. I'm not going to give away whether anybody gets killed or not in this movie. Because like I said, sometimes people do get killed in Conjuring movies. But, it's kind of a staple of the franchise. It'll be atmospheric and maybe somebody will be possessed, but that's about it. Usually. And so that's the same formula that's repeated throughout these movies. And, you know, while this is good, I mean, you know what to expect from a Conjuring universe movie at this point, and this movie delivers that. But if you're looking for something new or different, this movie doesn't offer that, except, you know, with starring a mostly new cast of protagonists, right? The Warrens, the adult Warrens, aren't in this movie that much. They've kind of kicked it off to the kids. And, you know, it's up to the kids to handle things, right? It's one of those kinds of movies. And I will say that it's to the credit of the writers and directors of these movies that even though it's basically one atmospheric jump scare after another, you oftentimes don't really get bored. And like, I wasn't bored, and the pacing was good, and, you know, you do get somewhat invested in things. But even so, for me, like, the kind of, this franchise was showing its age a bit in this movie. And I do think that going forward, they may need to think about, if they want to keep doing these movies, how to change things up a bit so it's just not a bunch of atmospheric jump scares woven together. Like, there's no real, like, mystery or anything new in this movie. It's basically Annabelle is out, we got to put her back in. You know, there's no new well, there are ghosts in this movie peppered out because everything in the house gets activated, or many things in the house get activated. But, you know, the one main ghost is one we've seen before and doesn't do anything new, or spirit or whatever. And so there's no, like, mystery to solve, you know, like, what's the reason behind all of this? So, you know, I think that the Conjuring universe needs to do something, like come up with more mysteries, or, you know, get more slashers, or make the ghosts themselves actual characters in the movie, you know, with their own, like, that would be interesting. You know, just mix it up, you know, just something different. Because I don't really know how much longer this franchise can be sustained if it maintains this level of sameness. But, you know, it's a decent Conjuring universe movie, so it is well done. So, you know, if you like those movies, you'll like this one, because it's really the same thing. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube and subscribe to the channel, because I appreciate your viewership, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.